Yo, what's up guys? Chase the Bro here, and welcome back to another Elden Ring update video. Today we're going to be taking a look at all the changes made in patch 1.14. There's honestly a lot of great changes, and I took the time to test a lot of these things out with our fellow content creator Lost, so you are going to see some examples of the things I'm reading through here. So this starts with some final boss balance adjustments. They adjusted some attack moves, decreased the damage of some attacks, decreased the stamina damage of some attacks, decreased the attack range of some non-weapon based attacks, so it's like light energy beams I guess, and improved the visibility of some attack effects. Honestly, that's my favorite change. I found it was a little bit blinding at times, but overall the boss has taken a lot of nerfs it seems. They decreased everything across the board. Now we move on to the star of the show, the PvP exclusive balance adjustments, and they started off by lowering the damage of backhand blades against other players. The Smith Script Cirque's throwing attacks are not affected by this change though. So overall, they just lowered the damage on the backhand blades. I tested it out on my dexterity build. It's hard for me to say exactly because I don't have two exact comparisons, but they do seem a bit weaker to me. They also decreased the damage of the spear's dual-wield attacks against other players, which I'm always in favor of, just because the moveset on that is so boring, to be honest. You've seen dual spears throughout the entire life cycle of Elden Ring. They were pretty ridiculous at launch. They've been nerfed slowly, but I'm always welcoming less damage on those setups. They decreased the damage of the Pata weapon against other players. I actually really enjoy the Pata. It has really good range, but it can be very powerful. The running light attack is very quick. The running heavy still combo does less damage, obviously, because they decreased the damage, but I still got respectable damage out of the combo. And the final change here is the spread crossbow weapon will no longer cause the headshot damage motion when hitting another player. Honestly, very welcome. I didn't test this out with Lost though. I guess we just kind of read over this. A welcome change though. The spread crossbow was very strong at the launch of the DLC. It's been getting nerfed slowly. Moving on to the skill section, the first thing they did was nerf scatter shot throw. They decreased the damage against other players, and this skill will no longer cause the headshot damage motion when hitting another player. So you're not going to catch them out of the roll with the headshots. Very welcome. I did an invasion build, and I feel like I just won by hitting the Ash of War button with this weapon. Next up, we have Discus Hurl. Honestly, I'm surprised it took them this long to change this Ash of War, but what they did was they decreased the damage animation value when generated by the skill when hitting another player. So when I'm throwing it, you're going to notice that I'm not stunning Lost here. Overall, great change. I feel like the reason it was so powerful was because in groups, one could just throw it constantly and stun you, allowing others to combo off of it. This is a huge change. And the final change is to Weed Cutter. I do love my Rakshasa's katana. The Weed Cutter is very strong though, and they decreased the poise value of follow-up attacks when using the skill against other players. So how I tested it was I did the Ash of War and then did the second one right at Lost again by spamming it, and I was still able to poise a Great Hammer. So I feel like it still has some pretty good poise for trades. You could still use this into groups pretty easily. Now we move into the general balance adjustments, and what they did was they increased the attack speed of the uncharged version of the first heavy attack for the following weapon types. And then they go on to list all the types of weapons that got the heavy attack boost. I'm a huge fan of them buffing any of the standard moveset on weapons because Ashes of War just do far more damage and are spammed a lot more. I love heavy attack mix-ups. Great for roll catch chains. I feel like having faster ones is going to benefit this greatly. Lost was lucky enough that his game hadn't updated yet, so he did test a few heavy attacks that we were interested in. It's pretty hard to tell without the frame data, but the Zweihander does look faster to me. I feel like these changes are something I'm going to notice over time when I'm going for roll catch combos, so I'm going to have to test the heavy attack speed boost more in depth. Next up, we have a change to the offhand Great Katana category. So after performing a left-handed attack with weapons of the Great Katana category, canceling into the subsequent attacks using the right-handed weapon will now take longer. I took the time to test this because I wanted to see if it still comboed, but the offhand Rakshasa does combo into the right-hand Katana. And you still get the true combo from the Ash of War of the Sword of Night into the Rakshasa. So if they did slow down using the offhand Great Katana and attacking into the right-hand weapon, it's still comboed for me. The hand-to-hand arts weapon type received an increase to their damage, and they shortened the recovery time between some normal attacks and follow-up attacks. So I guess attacking from certain types into other attacks is faster now. The increase in damage is very welcome as well. Colossal Swords also received a buff. I love that class personally. They increased the move distance when attacking, and they increased the speed of the first normal attack. So your initial light attack is going to come out faster now. The backhand blades actually received a nerf. They decreased the attack speed of normal attacks from a crouching position. So your crouch light attack is going to be slower now. I'm not sure by how many frames, but I do have an example of what it looks like now. The small shields and medium shields actually received a huge buff to their damage negation and guard strength. Some of my favorite shields have jumped up like 6, 7 guard boost. Because Lost had access to the save before the update, he actually took a video of all these shields. So as an example, here's some differences between the guard boost of the shields. I'm a huge fan of this though. Now I can use some of the less powerful shields for actually blocking, like the spiral shield. I like having that on for the stat boost, but it has better guard boost now, so huge. It will now take longer to be able to cancel into most actions after performing one-handed normal attacks with the Swift Spear. I haven't actually used the Swift Spear in depth personally, so I couldn't really weigh in on how different it is. Next up, they extended the Smith's Grip Dagger's throwing attack range. Honestly, very welcome. I had a build where I used it in my left hand for bleed buildup, and it was lacking range for sure. I feel like it was just a little longer than a weapon. You couldn't really use it for a long chip, but we tested it out. The range is actually pretty good now, I would say. Amazing change. They increased the attribute scaling of Rolana's Twin Blades for lower intelligence and faith attributes. Like I mentioned, Lost was able to get some of this information from his old save before the update, so you can compare and see the differences here. They're not too significant, but slight. And the final change here is to the Rolana's Cameo Talisman. They reduced the delay before the damage enhancement activates. Honestly, amazing change. I find it hilarious that I just did a build centered around stances a few days ago. This is going to make the build a lot better. You can be a lot less predictable now that the stance buff takes less time to activate. It's not as obvious. And they increase the damage enhancement. That's huge, honestly. Some of these ashes are going to be a lot stronger. I'm going to have to revisit that build. Now we move on to the weapon art changes. Starting off, they increased the attack speed of the Light Ash of War on the Sword of Light. Honestly, this comes out so much faster now. It's a lot better. The same thing goes for the Darkness Ash of War, although it's not as significant. It is faster, but the Sword of Light comes out immediately. The Darkness takes a little bit of time. You could run away from it, but its damage is higher. They buffed the Dynastic Sickle Play Ash of War of the Obsidian Lamina. They reduced the stamina consumption, increased the poise damage of the follow-up heavy attacks, and increased the movement distance of the follow-up heavy attacks. Honestly, that's all pretty useful. I feel like people were able to poise through the Ash of War attacks pretty easily, so this is a pretty welcome change. And they also adjusted the damage animation recovery time when the second follow-up heavy attack hits another player, so I guess they adjusted how long you're stunned for. Shield Strike actually received a nerf. Canceling other actions to perform this weapon art will now take longer. It had true combos with a lot of weapons before. I did a video testing out curved greatswords with it, and now every attack that I used with the curved greatsword and Lost tested, it did not combo into the Shield Strike. The Moon and Fire stance actually received a buff, so they increased the light wave range, poise damage, and attack speed of the stance's normal attack. Honestly, pretty nice. I haven't really used this weapon yet, so I will definitely have to test it out. But in our testing, the range on the light attack part of the Ash of War was pretty significant, and it always poise broke, so useful. The heavy attack part of the stance also received a poise damage buff. It seems to combo into itself pretty well. He wasn't able to roll out of it. And when he was able to panic roll, I was able to roll catch him with the heavy attack, so, you know, pretty useful attack. And the final change here is they adjusted the damage animation recovery time when a stance heavy hits another player. And honestly, it made the Ash of War pretty powerful, as you can see here. I'm able to combo it, good roll catches afterwards. I look forward to using this weapon, actually. And the final Ash here is Devonia's Vortex. They increased its attack power, extended the attack range of the Great Hammer's spin, increased the poise value and poise generation speed, and adjusted the damage animation recovery time when a charge attack hits another player. From the testing here, the range is amazing. Useful against teams, I would say, because the hitbox is pretty big. Also, you can easily trade now. They increase the poise value, and the poise speed is important, so when you start it up, the poise happens faster. Overall, really fun Ash. I feel like it deserved the buff. Now we move into the spells and incantations. Honestly, not a lot of changes here, but we did test them out. First off, we have Rolana's Twin Moons. They increased the attack range for the first and second attacks and reduced the knockback distance of the second attack. I still find the range on the first and second moon pretty small because it's a slow spell. I feel like I'm able to just run out of it, personally. But the third one definitely has some really good distance. And if you do happen to get hit by them, the damage on it is pretty large. Next up, we have a buff to the aspects of the Crucible Thorns. They increased the attack power, increased attack power, stamina attack power against guarding enemies, and the close range hitbox now follows the movement of the player. I used it uncharged. It can be okay. You know, it comes up pretty quickly if you have good cast speed, but overall, I feel like it's still not that powerful. Aspects of the Crucible Bloom received a buff. They increased the attack speed and increased the size of the hitbox, and they shorten the recovery time between using the incantation and follow-up actions. Honestly though, you can just walk away from this or attack somebody out of casting it. We were just testing it. You know, the damage is there, I guess, if you do get hit by it to some extent, but it's just so easy to avoid. Divine Bird Feathers is an interesting one. They decreased the minimum delay between consecutive hits, so the hits are happening faster, and they increase the range. Overall, though, the FP cost for the damage, probably not worth it, honestly. Furious Blade of Ansbach actually received some buffs. Canceling this incantation into rolls will now take less time, so you're able to cancel it faster. That's always useful if you attack into a team and you want to just avoid out of it. They increased the poise damage, pretty welcome, and they increased the enemy knockback distance. Yeah, this Ash of War I feel like still needs some love personally. We were testing. The damage on it isn't too vast. Lost I think had like 60 arcane here using the Dragon Communion Seal. So you could have more, but it still wasn't that powerful. Midra's Flame of Frenzy received a buff. They increased the attack speed, increased the Frenzy status buildup range against enemies, and decreased the Frenzy status buildup when using the skill. I had a lot of FP here. I was just charging it at Lost. I got a Madness buildup. I also built Madness up on myself. I feel like this is something that's going to be fun to use, but I haven't really used it prior to compare. And the final spell change is Bale's Flame Lightning. They increased its attack power. Lost here was pretty optimal for a dragon attack, and he did around 2200 damage, so honestly, pretty powerful. And then we move on to the bug fixes. I don't think I'm going to read through all of these here as I didn't test them out to show you guys. I can read through some important ones that I've seen here though. Like I've encountered the bug where you'd see the Euphoria increase the attack power of other weapons when its luster was restored, so they fixed that. The bug with the Godfrey icon not applying to some skills, spells, and incantations though, that one's huge because some of the DLC spells were not getting buffed by it. Now they're going to be even stronger. We're going to have to revisit that and test it out. I didn't know this was a bug, but apparently there were some invasion spawn-in points that were different than intended, so we'll see if we still get stuck in rocks and cages. That really covers all the changes made in patch 1.14. Hope you guys enjoyed. I do plan to make a build to showcase each of the changes over time. You know, it's going to take a while to go through all of them. I definitely want to test the speed boost to the heavy attack with certain weapons to see how that affects their roll catches and combos. I also find it funny that some of the weapons that I used very recently just got buffed, you know, like the Obsidian Lamina. Got some heavy buffs here. The stance build got heavily buffed. Just overall, I'm going to have to redo some of those builds. But yeah, that's going to cover it for today. I will see you guys all in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye. Goodbye.